What's going on, guys? Cutlery Novice coming to y'all with episode 39 of my inexpensive knife series. And this episode will be on an Ozark trail knife, specifically the Ozark Trail model 4028. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ozark Trail are a budget line of knives produced, or at least distributed, by Walmart. And they're kind of known for their crappy little $1 plastic folder, a plastic handled folder. It's a little clip blade with serrations, and that everyone and their grandmother has done a review on. And one day I might go ahead and bite the bullet and do a review on it myself. But they're just a budget knife that a lot of people who don't really care about knives, or a lot of kids getting into the hobby, can go into Walmart and buy. And actually, one of my very first knives that I ever bought when I got into the hobby of knife collecting was an Ozark Trail knife. Now, I have no idea what the model is anymore, but it was a little wood-handled frame lock, or it was actually obviously a steel handle, but it had a wood inlay that said Ozark Trail across it. And the blade had a nice laser cutout, and it was a cool recurved drop point. And it actually, if I remember correctly, wasn't a bad little knife. They sold it for like $8 or $9. And it was actually a pretty sweet knife. I'd like to get my hands on another one to review for the series. It's obviously nothing compared to a budget Kershaw or Birdline knife, but it really still was a great knife for the money back then. And when I saw this at Walmart, I just had to pick it up, and I saved the packaging just for the review. This knife actually has seen some use recently, so I can actually do my review on it. And you know that the inexpensive knife series is generally knives of about $15 or less. Well, this knife can be had for about $3.98. That's right, guys. This is a $4 budget folding knife. Oh, you sure as hell can't beat that. Let's go ahead and start with the blade of this knife. It is 3 inches long, and you can see it's actually stone washed. That's right, you're getting a stone washed, or at least a very good imitation of a stone washed blade on a $4 knife. Kind of a nice reverse Tanto blade style, nice amount of sweep and belly for getting decent cutting action. We have a hollow ground blade starting from around the mid spine, or the mid grind of the blade, which out of box actually was, or I guess I should say out of clamshell, actually was somewhat impressively sharp. It was obviously no Benchmade or Spyderco, but it certainly performed better than I thought it would, and came with a better edge than I expected it to. I mean, when you buy a knife for $4, what do you expect? Okay, I'll take it home, and I'll take it against a diamond stone, and I'll get the edge roughly shaped, and then I'll take it against a medium, and then I'll get it to a worker's edge, and I'll just use it that way. But no, this actually came with a pretty decent edge. Now, the blade steel is nothing to write home about. It's probably something along the lines of a 440A, or a Chinese equivalent, so what is that, like a 7CR17 or 5CR13 type of steel? But for the average person, it is absolutely fine. I always laugh when people get so caught up over blade steels. You know, they talk about S30V and 154CM and VG10, and I have to stop and ask, what are you guys doing with your knives? Because for those of you who don't know, you'd had to watch my channel for a while, but I actually worked at Sears for a while, and my entire job, aside from organizing the warehouse and unloading trucks, was opening up packages, like basically opening up the boxes, cutting them open, taking the stuff out, putting clothes on the racks, taking them out to the floor, and so on and so forth. And obviously in the morning, whenever we had our Tuesday deliveries, what we would do is we would open up our the lawnmower boxes, and we'd quickly assemble the ride-on mowers, and they were mostly assembled. We just had to put like the the steering wheel on and a few other things. But you know, my knife got used a lot because I refused to use a stupid safety knife, and my manager was more than willing to allow me to use my pocket knife. So I broke down hundreds and hundreds of boxes in my few months of working there, and honestly, even things like the Buck 110 managed to keep an edge just fine, although the Case Hammerhead did pretty poorly in doing so. And blades like this, which I have used for that type of work, generally are just fine. Yes, they will dull after a few days of use, but they sharpen up like that. And this thing sharpens up quickly. It takes a nice edge, and it holds it moderately. It actually, for a $4 knife, I'd say it holds it pretty damn well. I mean, I've had Smith & Wesson budget knives and a few others. What's another example of a decent budget? I'm not trying to talk like Frost Cutlery and Maxim, but even those are in the price range of this Ozark Trail, and it blows those out of the water. So for $4, the 440A is more than serviceable. I like the blade shape, I like the blade length for everyday carry, I like the grind, I like the finish, and I don't mind the steel on a budget knife. It does deploy via thumb stud or flipper. The flipper is next to worthless without wrist action. No matter what you do or how you lube it or how you adjust it, you're never going to flick it out without a little bit of wrist action. But one thing I will say about it is the thumb studs give a really fast and smooth deployment. And it was like this out of the package too. I mean, just super quick deployment. Again, for a $4 knife, I'm impressed. Lockup, solid up and down, and solid side to side. That's right, this knife is actually bank vault tight, which is not something I expected. Now, obviously with a budget knife like this, I could have just gotten a really good one. I don't expect that they're all this great. I'm sure you might get one out of pack because it has some side to side play, or God forbid even some up and down play. And by the way, it is a liner lock, and you can see it is a relatively thin liner lock. And in case you were curious, the blade does ride on Teflon washers. But yes, we do have a liner lock, and it is relatively thin. On to one downside about the knife, the liner lock is fairly sharp, which can make for an uncomfortable disengagement as well as an uncomfortable grip on the knife. Another con about the knife is the handle scales are pretty sharp, and they do dig into your hand quite a bit during use, and it has become very irritating when I have to bear down on the knife fairly hard for any kind of task. That being said, take it to a piece of sandpaper or against a grindstone for about 5 seconds, and you can round those corners out no problem. And I do intend on doing so myself, but I wanted to share how it kind of looked out of the package to you guys before making any serious modifications. The handle is G10, and actually on the packaging, it even says G10 handle. Again, on a $4 knife, I mean, how could you really ask for more? It's better than aluminum, it's better than plastic for damn sure, and it has a nice feel to it. Now, it's slick, and I'll see if I can get y'all a nice up-close view of the G10 here. Get my camera to focus. It doesn't like to focus sometimes. There we go. You can see the pattern in the G10. I'm sorry for my grungy hands. I've been working outside a bit today. But you can actually see the nice pattern in the G10. It's a very nice tan color. Big fan of it. And again, on most knives at this price point and even higher, you generally get stuck with crap like plastic. Actually, let's go ahead and roll in the Kershaw Brawler, which I'll be doing a review on sometime in the future. I've had this for over a year now. This is a roughly $20 knife with glass reinforced nylon handles, which is a form of plastic. And honestly, I prefer the handle material, and if it weren't for the sharp corners, the overall design of this Ozark Trail 4028, much better. Before I forget to mention, the knife does come with a pocket clip for right hand tip down carry position only. So lefties are kind of out of luck with the knife. People who prefer tip up, like myself, are somewhat out of luck, but again, it is a budget knife. You do have an adjustable pivot point should your knife ever develop side-to-side blade play. And the jimping top side is actually excellent. It provides a great lock-in, although I do find it to be cut rather sharply. And not necessarily in the best way, but overall it does function absolutely fine. The pocket clip is reasonably strong and reasonably tight, and it has a nice lip. Now careful, because that will catch on your seat belt or on the door of your car or whatever, and you will bend it out of place if you aren't careful, which is what happened to my Sanren U here. Haven't bothered to bend that back into place yet because I can't find my Torx bit, but this is what happens if you guys aren't careful, and it will certainly happen here. And that brings me into competitive options. I don't have very many budget knives on the table to show you here today. Certainly nothing quite in this price range, but let's bring in that Sanren Muse. What is this thing? It's been so long. The 763, if I remember correctly. It's the aluminum handled axis lock. knife. It was one of my favorite EDC blades before I bent the clip. It can be had for about $13 if memory serves. You can go left or right hand for tip up carry, and has a beautiful axis lock, great lockup, 8CR 13 MOV. Yes, it does have better fit and finish than the Ozark Trail, but even it is a fair bit more expensive. How about the Frost Cutlery Steel Warrior knife that I reviewed in the past? And I can't remember the model number of this to save my life either. I have a review of it. Just go to my channel and search it up in the search box. But this is a nice little budget knife, around $8, so around twice the price of the Ozark Trail. And similar quality. I actually think the Ozark Trail might be slightly better quality than the Frost Steel Warrior, although I have noticed this blade holds an edge just a fair bit longer. And the handle is definitely far more comfortable, but the pocket clip is far inferior, and it's a very different knife. But it is kind of a competitive option. I don't think they actually make this anymore. Again, I don't have very much to show. And then I have that long discontinued Colt M4-K, another knife that I actually do carry around and use quite frequently. Again, there's nothing wrong with a budget knife, guys. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using a budget blade. If it gets the job done, takes a fine edge, holds it decently, and is actually workable in the hand, then I don't see an issue with making it your EDC blade. Worst case scenario, you are one of those guys with Benchmades and Spydercos and Cold Steels and whatever else, and nothing against those guys. I've been that guy in the past before. But if you are one of those guys and you just want a decent knife to beat it, to throw in the toolbox or whatever, this is actually worth picking up, and I think you guys might be pleasantly surprised with the quality you are getting for a $4 knife. So that has been my review of the Ozark Trail Model 4028, and I hope to God I actually got that model number right. I just looked at the package, and indeed I did. Quite a nice knife for the money. All things considered, for $4, I'd give this thing a 9 out of 10. I really couldn't ask for much more out of such a cheap knife. Alright, that's been my review. I'll see y'all next time, hopefully when I review the Kershaw Brawler. And until then, Cutlery Novice signing out. Peace, and take care.